Somehow this balloons from an event that cost $1 million the first year they did it to $63 million now. Harry has ballooned the budget from $1 million. It cost $1 million to do it with 400 people. It's now $63 million with an extra 140 people. What the fuck? I mean, that's insane. 200,000 pounds go toward the vets. 200,000 pounds out of 63 million. What the?
They're ashamed of him. They consider him dangerous and toxic, which is why if you meet him, you do so behind closed doors.
Yeah.
They have the bloated salaries. They pay like 23 people over $100,000 a year for a 7-day. I mean, it's just insane.
Money's going to be a big, and this is the mood music, JJ. All of this builds up to a scenario in which the marriage is under pressure. The penny dropped for Harry, realizing you've ruined my life.
Meghan and Harry are reportedly so broke they can't even divorce. The legal fees would bankrupt them.
There's an audit being done on the $63 million right now. I think this is going to turn out very, very badly.
The media are having a total meltdown about Harry and Meghan now, and seeing just how isolated they are and what a toxic brand they are. So the royal family don't want the Sussex brand anywhere near their very successful royal brand. Similarly, Hollywood, as we know, have turned their back on Harry and Meghan as well. The whole thing's a hot mess.
So, also, it doesn't pay for the veterans' transportation or insure them. I mean, what is this paying for?
The insurance thing is insane.
It is.
Insurance.
Lots of private jets, lots of camera crews, lots of security, a documentary, beautiful fashion, of course, from Meghan. 5-star hotels they stay in. I wonder, I mean, somebody is doing it. There's an audit being done on the $63 million right now. I think this is going to turn out very, very badly. Watching Kinsey Schofield, who's great, by the way, and she had Paula Froelich, who's done phenomenal research on this. I know Mark Dolan quotes her a lot. And she's talking about how it looks like this has been nailed down in San Diego for 2029. So, and then they have these quotes from Harry. Time Magazine does, Invictus gives them their identity back. What? And then he says it saves lives.
Well, she's big on saying that. I mean, look at all the lives Meghan saved by buying jeans.
Oh, God. What a pile of crap. I can't believe she ever said it, but she did. So many have come to Harry, according to Harry, and said, if it wasn't for Invictus, I would have offed myself. Probably for all the transportation bills and medical bills that they didn't want to stick their family with if they off themselves. That's probably why they don't off themselves, because of the Invictus Games.
$1 million. That is what the Invictus Games cost the first time Harry ran it. 400 competitors. $1 million. By any reasonable measure, a lean, efficient operation delivering exactly what it promised. Support and recognition for wounded veterans through international athletic competition. Now look at the most recent games in Vancouver. 543 competitors, $63 million, 140 more people, $62 million more dollars. Someone is going to need to explain that math. And according to reports, an audit is currently underway to find out exactly how it happened. But here is the detail that stops you completely when you hear it. Of that $63 million reportedly spent on an event for wounded veterans, approximately $200,000 went directly to veteran charities. $200,000 out of $63 million. That is less than 1/3 of 1% of the total spend going directly to the people the organization was created to serve. Those numbers are not allegations. They come from the organization's own filings. And they have triggered a debate that is now reaching into government audit offices on 2 continents. Welcome to the Marquee Report. This is the story of how the one project that was supposed to be untouchable became the center of the most serious financial scrutiny Harry has ever faced. Let's go through the numbers carefully, because they deserve to be stated clearly and in order. The 2025 Invictus Games in Vancouver and Whistler brought together 543 wounded and recovering service members from 23 countries. Total reported cost, $63.2 million Canadian dollars. That works out to approximately $118,000 per competitor. Now let's compare that with events operating with directly comparable missions. The U.S. Warrior Games, which supports wounded American service members through athletic competition, reportedly operates on around $2 million annually. A comparable event in Germany was reportedly organized for approximately $200,000, with roughly half the number of participants. Same mission, same population being served, dramatically different price tags. But here is where the comparison becomes genuinely devastating. The Invictus Games Foundation's own financial accounts reportedly show that in 2024, direct grants to veteran organizations fell by 63%, from over £500,000 to just £200,000 in a single year. In the same year that foundation income rose 41%, a new six-figure executive role was added. Cash reserves grew to £2.3 million, and the highest-paid executive received compensation that observers argue is significantly above the norm for charities of similar size. Income up, executive positions added, reserves growing, legal fees tripling from £45,000 to £155,000 with no public explanation, and direct grants to the veterans the organization exists to serve, down by nearly 2/3. An audit is reportedly underway, and people who have reviewed the available records say they expect it to turn out badly. Here is the funding structure that has generated specific and documented concern, because it is more complicated than a simple event budget. Approximately 30 million Canadian dollars of the 63 million total came from public sources. 15 million from the Canadian federal government through Veterans Affairs Canada. Another 15 million from British Columbia through its Ministry of Tourism, Arts and Sport. 30 million in taxpayer money. But that money did not flow directly to the Games. According to tax records, it was routed through a separate corporation, the Vancouver Whistler Games Corporation, which then paid a licensing fee to the Invictus Games Foundation, the British charity that owns the Invictus brand. The amount of that licensing fee was redacted from the public budget documents. Once observers noticed that missing figure, they started examining everything else in the filings more carefully. And what they found has kept the conversation alive across multiple countries. An American for-profit company called June's LLC received nearly £30,000 in 2023, with no description of purpose provided in the accounts. $4 million in sponsorships from unnamed corporate donors. Critics question whether the anonymity was requested specifically to avoid public scrutiny of who is financially backing the organization, and the accounts appear to contain two different company registration numbers, one on the cover page and another on the balance sheet, a discrepancy that has not been publicly explained. The foundation publicly states that 92% of every pound supports charitable activities. But critics point out that charitable activities under UK Charity Commission guidelines includes the cost of running the events, venue costs, travel accommodations, staffing production, not direct grants or services to veterans. £200,000 in direct grants to veteran organizations, out of $63 million in total expenditure. That is the number that has driven the petition demanding Harry's removal. That is the number the audit is examining. And that is the number that nobody connected to the organization has publicly defended in specific terms. Here is the detail that has generated the most visceral public reaction, because it sits in direct and irreconcilable contrast with everything the organization publicly claims to represent. Reports indicate that many of the 543 wounded and recovering veterans who competed in Vancouver covered their own travel costs, their own accommodation, and their own equipment. Reports also indicate the organization does not provide insurance coverage for veteran competitors. Only active service members were covered. The story of Canadian veteran Scott Snow, who suffered a fractured cervical spine, a fractured lumbar spine, and head trauma when his wheelchair flipped during competition and was reportedly told he had no insurance coverage, has become the human face of the financial questions. He is reportedly seeking $2.4 million in damages and can no longer walk up the stairs in his own home. When he contacted the Invictus Foundation for help after his injuries, the organization reportedly gave him a list of phone numbers for other charities to contact. Meanwhile, reports describe luxury travel, five-star accommodations, and significant fashion expenditure connected to Harry and Meghan's appearances at the same events. Estimates of $180,000 in clothing costs at Invictus events have circulated widely. Those figures remain disputed. But in the context of a veteran who cannot afford his own housing costs, while the organization that created his injury refers him elsewhere, the contrast is impossible to present neutrally. While the Invictus audit was gathering momentum, Harry was at the NBA Finals in San Antonio as a reported guest of the league commissioner. And then came the moment that spread across every social media platform simultaneously. Spike Lee, the Oscar-winning director and legendary New York Knicks superfan, was caught on camera in what appeared to be an awkward interaction with Harry. Online commentators immediately began analyzing the footage, with some claiming Harry appeared to extend a greeting that was not warmly returned. The clip spread with remarkable speed, combined with footage showing Harry seated in row 8, several rows back from the courtside positions occupied by other high-profile guests. The visuals generated their own commentary. Row 8, for the man who's about 8th in line to the throne, read one comment that gathered significant traction online. But critics connected the NBA appearance to something more specific. Harry had also attended the U.S. Warrior Games, the American veteran competition that reportedly operates on $2 million annually. He was photographed flipping burgers and greeting attendees. Critics immediately contrasted this with the Invictus budget controversy. The Warrior Games achieves a comparable mission on $2 million a year. Invictus spent $63 million on 543 competitors. And Harry showed up at the leaner, better-funded competitor, apparently looking for positive press coverage at the exact moment his own organization was facing audit questions. The timing was noted widely. The financial questions do not stop at Vancouver. The next two Invictus Games have generated their own separate controversies that build directly on the audit concerns. Birmingham is hosting the 2027 Games. The UK government has committed up to £26 million in public funding. Birmingham, a city that effectively declared bankruptcy in 2023 and only exited that status in February of this year. A financially distressed city receiving £26 million for an event whose financial management is already under significant public scrutiny. Vancouver had Boeing and Atco as co-presenting sponsors and more than 44 corporate partners. Birmingham currently has 11 unnamed sponsors, contributing an estimated £4 million combined. Boeing ended its sponsorship and chose not to renew. Qualified professionals have reportedly been declining positions with the Birmingham organizing team, citing the organization's reputation. San Diego is reportedly being lined up for the 2029 Games, with speculation that state or local government funding could be involved. California government connections have been discussed. Critics have asked directly whether public funds from a state with its own significant budget pressures would be committed to an event whose financial management is currently being audited. These are not hypothetical future concerns. These are active discussions, happening against the backdrop of a $63 million event that spent less than 1/3 of its total budget on direct grants to the veterans it was created to serve. Here is the detail that critics argue completes the picture, because it connects the Invictus financial questions to something broader about how Harry's public profile is maintained. Time magazine placed Harry on its Time 100 list in the sports category alongside LeBron James, Patrick Mahomes, and Floyd Mayweather. Critics immediately questioned the categorization. Harry is not a professional athlete. He does not coach a team. He does not compete in sports. His connection to the sporting world comes through the Invictus Games, the same organization currently under audit for its financial management. Some commentators have pointed to reported connections between Time magazine's ownership and BetterUp, the company where Harry serves as Chief Impact Officer. There is no public evidence those connections influenced his recognition, But critics argue the same circles of influence keep appearing in conversations about Harry's public image and high-profile recognition. BetterUp itself has generated its own controversy. Reports suggest the company laid off a significant number of staff while continuing to pay Harry, generating internal frustration among employees who described him as someone who never shows up while they bore the cost of his compensation. Here is where everything lands in the most visible possible way. While Harry was in San Antonio at the NBA Finals, Trooping the Color happened at Buckingham Palace. King Charles, Queen Camilla, Prince William, Catherine, Princess Anne, Prince Edward, and the next generation of the royal family on the balcony. A global audience. A ceremony that projected precisely the image of a functioning monarchy moving confidently into its next chapter. Online, the reaction was not anger about Harry's absence. It was something more deflating for him than anger. He simply was not missed. The future of the monarchy was visible and compelling on that balcony without him. The contrast between the royal family's Trooping the Color coverage and Harry at the NBA Finals in row 8, with an awkward celebrity encounter going viral, told its own story without anyone having to write a caption. That is the man who created the Invictus Games. Sitting in row 8, while an audit examines how $63 million produced $200,000 in direct veteran grants, while Birmingham has 11 sponsors, while qualified staff declined to work for the organization because of its reputation, while a veteran who was injured at the games cannot afford his own accommodation. Here is where everything stands right now. An audit is reportedly underway examining how the Invictus Games budget grew from $1 million to $63 million, while direct grants to veteran organizations fell 63%. The legal and financial exposure that audit could produce is significant and currently unquantified. Birmingham has 11 sponsors against Vancouver's 44. Boeing did not renew. San Diego is being discussed for 2029, with public funding questions already emerging. A petition demanding Harry's removal is growing, and the veterans the organization was created to serve are being referred to other charities when they need help after being injured at Invictus events. The one project that survived every other controversy. The one cause that even Harry's critics acknowledged as genuinely good. The one legacy that was supposed to outlast everything else. $63 million, $200,000 to veterans, an audit underway, an answer coming. This has been the Marquee Report. Subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss what comes next. See you on the next one.